I hope you watched already my HDR analyze video for the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series version, because then you know exactly what you can expect from the PC version. And what should I say? Great HDR implementation as on the consoles, and this is something which is actually quite unusual. The last game where we had really great HDR on the PC was Ratchet & Clank, and then we had a couple of games there was no HDR at all. This title here, in terms of gameplay so far, in terms of performance and also in terms of HDR, is a very big surprise. And as always, first things first. Does Armored Core 6 supports the HDR calibration app under Windows 11? The short answer is no. And the reason is, to be honest, I don't know the reason. The only thing what I can tell you is we have HDR settings in the game, but make sure you are actually in the game, because in the main menu you can't change any settings in the HDR menu. And what we have in this menu is the adjust brightness setting, which is responsible for the overall brightness of the game. And then we have the maximum peak brightness, which is responsible for the maximum peak brightness in specular highlights. And last but not least, we have adjust saturation, where you can make your game more colorful. So I'm not sure if you've watched my HDR analyze video for the console version already. And yeah, if you have done this, then you know that the console version has actually no issue with HDR black level rays. And yeah, we are so lucky here, because the same counts for the PC version. As you can see, this is just perfect, at least in this level here, where you play actually in a very dark environment. It is perfect. In terms of contrast, we have perfect HDR black level floor, and we have absolute great HDR highlights up to 1000 nits at the moment, because this is the setting what I have chosen in the menu. It is just really great. HDR, again, in terms of the HDR implementation, Armored Core 6 is a very nice surprise. So let's take a closer look on my recommended settings for the PC version of Armored Core 6, and there is not much of a difference compared to the PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series version. The only thing what I found is that the maximum peak brightness setting is more accurate on the PC version than on the console version. If you remember, and if you watched my HDR analyze video for the console version, then you know that I actually recommended to go slightly above your maximum nits capabilities of your screen. That means if you have an LG G2 with a maximum peak brightness of around 1000 nits, then choose 1100 in the game. But on the PC version I found that's not necessary actually, because it looks like if you select 1000 nits on the PC version, then you get exactly 1000 nits on your screen. In terms of the brightness setting in this game, we have on the PC the same issue, or I shouldn't say issue, but the same behavior as on the console version. Because as soon you decrease this value below 5, you actually lose maximum peak brightness in specular highlights. And that's why my recommendation is, the only thing what you should do is actually increase it if you need to, but keep in mind that you raise the HDR black level floor slightly. The only thing what I really don't like in this game, or what is a disadvantage actually, or maybe a disappointment, is the color space. Because in most of the time, we're using the BT709 color space, which is just SDR color space. And yeah, we are not using any or almost no DCI-P3 or BT2020. And I mentioned this already in my other video, I'm not quite happy with the colors in this game, because I found that the saturation setting to 5 is a little bit too less. I found it actually much better when I increased the saturation to around 7, but this is my own preference. You can increase the value actually if you like to 10. You get a lot more saturated colors. If you like this, that's of course a complete different story. If you watched my HDR analyze video for the console version, then you know already that I'm preferring HDRG over dynamic tone mapping on in this game. And the reason is actually quite simple, because dynamic tone mapping on is clipping very fine specular highlights. You have just very bright objects, but not very detailed objects anymore. And I would strongly not recommend to use dynamic tone mapping off, because then also you will lose a lot of details in specular highlights. HDR in Armored Core 6, in my opinion, makes a pretty good job.